Alright, check 1 2, check 1 2. Just making sure all the sound stuff is good to go. Seems like we're okay for the most part. Anyway, how's it going, everyone? It is Saturday where I'm at, Saturday afternoon, but it could be evening or morning for you guys, so hello. NPC Scientist here, good to me here, and I am in my pixelated RPG form for this RPG class lesson. So I don't know, I just kind of wanted to give this a try. It's not like anyone actually asked for this, but I figured I just wanted to see if I can make a game on stream from start to finish. Now, it's not going to be like anything monumental or anything like that, but it's going to be like a game that we go through how we actually do like game development and that kind of thing. In this case, I'll be using RPG Maker MZ. I have used RPG Maker VX Ace before. This will be my first time using MZ in particular, but it should be for the most part pretty much the same as VX Ace, with a few major differences. If I actually wanted to do some scripting with VX Ace, we would be using Ruby to do that. But in this case, we can do JavaScript for the scripting on MZ. Now, do note that I do have some caveats before we start the stream. And hey, Ken, welcome to the stream. Welcome. How's it going? Almost to 200 subs. Yeah, we're almost there. And I don't think I've actually mentioned this in YouTube, but I have mentioned it briefly in Twitter at some point, where if I get 200 subs, I'm going to be eating some really, really spicy noodles, and I'm probably going to regret it very, very much. But it's a celebration. I figure, why not? Why not? But anyway, today, so let me just get some background first here before we start. I've been familiar with the RPG Maker series for almost 10 years now. I say almost. I think I started around VX Ace, whenever that was. I have tried to make a game on it before. I have made like a really, really small mini game for a Christmas thing. Don't have that I don't have that handy to show, but if I find it, I might throw it up somewhere. But anyway, yeah, so I have made one tiny mini game. It's not an RPG or anything. It was more like a hide and seek kind of thing. And with RPG Maker, you would think you can only make RPGs with this, right? No, you can make pretty much any kind of game you want. RPG though is what it's tailored for. You can do visual novels. You can kind of pull off visual novels here. You can also do non-RPG games. You've probably seen Yumineki. You've probably seen IB. Those are not RPGs. Those are kind of like exploration type things. And if you really wanted to, you could like do, what do you call this, cutscenes with RPG Maker for videos and stuff. So it is whatever you want it to be. But RPGs are the main thing that this is known for. But anyway, as far as what I want to accomplish with these classes, let's go back to that. And I'm gonna write it on screen just so we're clear on this. So goal of the RPG Maker Dev Series. Let's make that our header for now. See if it shows up like I think it will. It's kind of not sure what. Okay, I had this working earlier. What? Oh, there we go. That's why. And it does not like to do my capitalization for whatever reason. There we go. So goal of the RPG Maker Dev Series. To make a game from start to finish on stream. Let's see if that comes up. Yep. So to make a game from start to finish on stream. Why is that important? It's not really important per se, just for game making. I kind of want this to be like a tutorial on how to go about game making. Now, your process for game making is going to be a little bit different from project to project. But I just want to get the overview on how to go about it if you're not familiar. So this is targeted towards those who have no clue where to start with development. This is really what it's for. This is really what it's for. And this thing's gonna get bigger and bigger as I keep typing. And as I mentioned, I am not an expert in game development. I've made one game, made plans for several more, never actually finished any of them, such as game deving. But I can at least tell you the steps to it, and we'll try to finish one on stream here. So there are going to be some caveats to the stream, caveats to the series. For the most part, we won't be using scripts. We'll not be using scripts. Maybe exception for... let me see. Exception for making spine assets work. Yeah, so there's going to be an exception for making spine assets work, at least for this series. Now, I think this might be publicly available, and if I can find it, I'll link it in the description below. Actually, let me double check that really quick, because I think it might be. I didn't check this beforehand, because I wasn't planning on doing it on this stream at least. I'll check it later, actually. I'll check it later. But let's just say for now, it might be actually publicly available. I know there are some free assets made by a friend of mine that use Spine, and you might be able to get that working with MV. Now I'm not sure, MZ. I'm not sure if MV has the same issue, but I know it's at least supported on MZ, which is the latest RPG maker, which has a lot of support from some devs. So that's good to know at least. And if you're still stuck in the pre-MZ MV area, that's perfectly fine. At least the steps for how to do game development is still going to work for you. So, speaking of game development, one more caveat. I am not an expert in game dev. I just know the steps. That's pretty much a general statement for me. Okay, this is probably gonna get even bigger. Alright, so general steps of game dev. Let's start there. General steps of game development. And I've checked with my friends who are game developers regarding this, so hopefully it's going to be fairly accurate. But we have to start. So whenever you start doing game development, where do you actually start? I think this is the thing that trips a lot of people up. A lot of people, whenever they see a game they like or want to make a game similar to something else that they saw before, they always seem to go with like either art or music that they want to mimic, or the story, the art, the music. Those three typically first come to mind whenever you want to make a game. However, while those are all important, the actual framework for what you're gonna be making your games in is also equally important. Like, you need like the design specs, you need to know what software you're using, you need to know how to work with that software. How is your what are the plans for your sprites? What are the characters gonna look like? What is the direction of the game? That kind of thing. You can't just start with script. You can't just start with a story without any visual direction and know where to go. So I've kind of already touched on the name for this first step, but first, number one, you definitely need to plan. So planning is first and utmost important for game development. If you don't do your planning, then you are going to be taking way too much time on your project. You won't be able to change things very easily. There's no roadmap for you and the other people you're working with, if you're working with other people. It's like you need to lay down everything that, well, you don't have to lay down every little single detail, but you need to have a general idea on where you want to go, and then you can fill the details in as you go. So, planning, very, very important. Very important. Next would be, I call this design. Now, what does design actually entail? Design doesn't necessarily entail just the character design or the music design. Those are a part of it also. But this is kind of more like how do you want the game to feel? What direction do you want the game to feel? What direction do you want the game to go? What is the progression? What are the mechanics of your characters? What are the mechanics of the gameplay? How are the maps going to look like? That kind of thing. So planning and design go hand in hand. And you need to spend most of your time on these two before you even start anything else. That's pretty much the main gist of that. But everything starts with planning. Without planning, I would suggest not to move on further because everyone's going to be so lost in what they're going to do, yourself included, that it's just going to overall take much longer than what you need to do. Now, unless you're like someone genius like Zun from the Toho project, I'm pretty sure he just still does some planning on his own, but what the planning looks like is going to be different from team to team depending on how you actually handle the project and how experienced you are. But anyway, those are the general two as far as the first two that you need to focus on when you're starting out. Then these are kind of more like RPG specific for these next two, maybe even RPG Maker specific, but I'm gonna list them down anyway. So third one would be mapping, which basically just means design your maps. So where the character is going to travel, what are the scenes going to look like. Again, if you don't know if you didn't plan this out, this part would be a little bit tougher to do. I mean, you can put this in planning, but you don't have to. But mapping is more like a detailed step past planning, so you don't really have to do it too much in planning, but if you do it in planning, the mapping part should be a little bit smoother. But this is just basically what are the scenes going to look like. If you're not doing like an overworld map or towns or that kind of thing, then it's like what are the backgrounds going to look like. That's going to be part of your mapping also. Let's see, next would be eventing. Now, when I say eventing, this could actually be a whole number of things, but in RPG Maker, events specifically mean any piece of commands that will trigger a scene, behaviors of an NPC, or even behaviors of skills and such. But eventing is just, in my case, a general term. But you're gonna need to know how to. This is basically part of directing also, because you need to know like how to direct scenes or how the scene's gonna play out. If you don't do this, then I mean, it's fine if you don't do this. But even like in a very minimalistic game, like let's say Yumeniki, there might not be a whole lot of cutscenes that happen there, at least in the original. But there's still a lot of interactions and stuff that you have to keep an eye on. Hello, Nasad. Shad who? Hello. Welcome to the stream. How's it going? I'm just kind of sort of going over general steps of game development right now. Some of this might sound RPG Maker specific, so I'm trying to expand a little bit before we get started on actual work as far as the stream is concerned. And so, especially the last one is going to be also as equally important as the first step, is testing. So you did the planning, you did design, great. You put all the maps together, great. You have all the skills, character classes, and all the interactions coded and set, great. Now you have to play through the game, test everything, and make sure it works. Whether or not there's actually a glitch or a bug or exploitable bug, that's something that maybe players will figure out, or if your testing is thorough, then you should be able to get that before it gets to the players, because who knows, if you get a game-breaking bug and it prevents progress or makes the game totally broken, that's kind of bad. Or let's say there's a save bug near the end of the game and you can't save, or it deletes the data. That would be kind of bad. So you need to test everything and make sure you have plans for testing. And then once you get all this done, then congratulations, I think you just made your game. But this is in broad strokes what game development is going to look like in general. And I have double checked this with friends who are actual game developers, so hopefully this is not wrong. But yeah. But anyway, for today anyway, we're gonna focus mainly on planning and design. Now, since we're only gonna make a really small game for our purposes, we're not gonna get too deep into planning or design. Oh wait, did it not save? I guess it just didn't show the bottom part. Why not? Oh, it's cut off. Huh. Why is it doing this? I wonder if there's a way for me to make this bigger. No, well, not bigger like that. No, I need it to like go vertical. Come on. I guess the text on my screen is a lot bigger than expected, so it's a little bit. It's not going as far down as I want it to. Yeah, for some reason it's not going as far down. Well, let me delete that and show the actual steps again. There we go. General steps of game development: planning, design, mapping, eventing, testing. There we go. Okay, so we got that out of the way. We actually have those steps down. Ah, Mecha Champion. So, not today. Not today. It's actually been a while since I did that. Anyway, let's see. So we're going to focus mainly on planning and design for today. And what we're going to do for planning and design is going to be a very... What do you call this? It's going to be a very trimmed down version for what you would do for real. But anyway, so I have a project here in RPG Maker MZ opened up. This is actually a personal project, so we're going to go and make a new one from scratch. So we're going to make this, call this stream game. And what we're going to do here. So whenever you make a new project in RPG Maker, you have some defaults already that you can work with. So here, oh wait, it's not gonna show if I do that. The screen's not big enough. Alright, well, I have to deal with it. Okay, anyway, so maybe I need to get my easel here. Because right now the screen's on a different monitor, it's a little hard to see otherwise. Okay, so we have, whenever you open up RPG Maker, you have these. Let's go back one. So you have basically an empty scene. You see some tiles over here on the left. You have a pre-made map over here, which basically has nothing. And then all you have these options up here. Now this one, it's a little different. What is this? Playtest. So we're not going to be doing any playtesting, but this is basically just runs your game. It basically runs your game, and you can test the game, do all that sort of stuff before you like release it to anywhere. We have map editor stuff up here. We'll get to that when we get to that. But as far as planning and design goes, so planning, generally you'd be opening like a notepad, spreadsheet, pen and paper. So that's basically what we're gonna have to do for now. And alright, so let's just start with something. What kind of game are we trying to make? What kind of game? So what we're gonna try to make just a simple RPG with one town and one dungeon. So that's pretty much our planning. Not all of it, but this is like the main goal that we're going to try to do with this series. Alright, simple RPG with one town and one dungeon. How many characters are we going to do? Number of characters. For this one, let's stick with 4. I'm not quite sure how many characters we can have in a party here. Let me see if there's actually a way to figure that out. Typically, I think the default party size is 4. So we'll go with 4. And then we gotta decide character classes. Let's see, what else should we do here? Let me just open up this database here so we have an idea what we should be doing. We have character classes, names, level system, equipment, items, skills, enemies. I wish this live updated every time I added something, because it just does not like doing that. Let's see. What else? I think, okay, so as far as we're concerned, let's just keep it to this for now. Let's just keep it to this for now. I don't want to overwhelm the number of things we have to do just yet. And normally you would just take a piece of paper, spreadsheet, notepad, whatever the heck you want to use, and use that for planning. In this case, we'll be using RPG Maker as part of the planning process. We have our notepad up here. Hopefully that's not too small on the screen. And so we have more than 8 characters here. We have more than 4 characters here. So we're just gonna ignore everyone from 4 through 8. Or maybe I can just delete them. That'll probably be the easiest way so we don't get distracted too much. And I'm not going to be using any other extra resources outside what's already here for default, just for simplicity's sake. But if we wanted to, we can change the characters' faces by what's already here by default. Let's see, like, I don't know. Maybe we can make our main character this girl over here. Oh, she's already here actually, so we don't need to remake them. Hey Techman, what's up? We are doing a little bit of a lesson on game design, so we're kind of doing our planning phase right now. Trying to decide who our characters are going to be, as well as classes and all that stuff. And maybe doing a little bit of basic map design also. I kind of wanted to do mapping next time, but we'll probably just do like a little quick town map or something before we get into anything nitty-gritty. But let's see, since we have people in chat already, I'm just gonna name it whoever has showed up so far. So let's see, Techman. I don't know what. So all these classes are the default classes in the system, but we can always change that to whatever. So Tankman, what is your class, would you say? Are you a Tankman? Or are you a gunner, something else? We don't have a good graphic for you here, so I'm gonna probably use the next alternative. Let's see, what else we have here? Is there like anyone in armor? Should be someone in armor here. Oh, this kind of looks like you. I'm thinking this robot guy kind of looks like you. Let's make this you for now. And there should be a robot sprite, I think. Oh no, not this one. Ooh, sad to hear. Well, hope everyone involved is okay. Yeah. Alright, we'll make this you for now then. Because I have no other way to do this. Let's see. I guess there's also a side view combat sprite here. I'm not really gonna mess too much with this. For consistency, we'll go ahead and see if we can find something to use. It doesn't look like there's any. We'll probably be using a front system anyway, so we'll just leave that there. Well, sadness. My condolences, Tankman. My condolences. Anyway, we'll make your character over here. I think we also can give traits and stuff. Now, before we get through this, so for each character class, I kind of want, for each character, I kind of want to give like everyone maybe 4 skills and like 1 passive. That sounds like really small, but for what we're trying to do here is make a battle system that's simple enough and I don't know, just very basic, just something really basic. So we'll get to the skills later because that's a whole different thing. So right now we're just gonna get our characters together. So we have Tankman here. We'll keep Priscilla. I like Priscilla. Let me see if I can get a different graphic for Priscilla. Like an updated. There we go. SV Actor 1. So Priscilla is looking quite nice here. So I think we have. Let me just make this note. So Tankman is most likely either going to be a tank or gunner. Not quite sure yet. Priscilla is going to be your garden variety swordsman. And then, so we have a all-rounder, which is a swordsman. We have a tank, which hopefully can take damage for us. We need a healer. So we'll just put healer here for a note. And we also need a DPS class, some kind of DPS class. So for healer, this guy doesn't look very much like a healer class, but let's see if we can find someone else. You know, the typical healer class is kind of looking like this over here, this girl. But if we really wanted to, we can also make the healer class a cat. Supposedly cats are pretty good as far as healing people emotionally and all that stuff. So there is our healer. Well, the graphic for the healer. I mean, we need a DPS. So DPS. Who should we use for a DPS? Let's see. Who looks like they can do like a decent amount of damage? We already used the cat, so can't use the cat again. You know, I'm kind of partial to... No, we already have a robot. So we can't use a robot twice. At least whenever you're designing characters, try to make them as distinct as possible from each other. Even the NPCs, make them distinct if possible. It just livens things up a bit. But since we're just using very basic stuff here, Let's make this guy the DPS. Or if we wanted to be really, really unassuming, well, we have one we can have one physical attack and one magic attacker. So I guess this would be pretty good for DPS. Let's go with that then. Now, which one is this? I think it's this girl. Yep. Oh, that's kind of looking like Homura from Madoka Magica. Wasn't expecting that. And we're not going to worry about side view again. If there is a side view available, I'm going to go ahead and put that. Let me see if I can find this person. I like the one with the cabbie hat though, but. And by the way, at least for RPG Maker, you should be able to replace any of these sprites or add sprites if you have them. It does kind of show you the general, what do you call this? The general format it expects. So just keep that in mind. I feel like I'm using the wrong one here, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so we got Tankman as our tank, we got Priscilla as our swordsman-ish type, or at least an all-rounder. And then we have... Let's give this cat a name. What should we name the cat? This is going to be our healer. What should we name the cat? I'm really bad at cat names, or animal names in general. You know what, I think I'm kind of thinking Salem for now. Let's name him Salem. Also, it looks like we can give them starting equipment. We'll figure this out later. We just want to get our characters in. And then, let's name... You know what, let's keep Michelle. Priscilla and Michelle keep their name, because Michelle, she looks like a Michelle. But if I really wanted to, we could probably name her Homura or something, because she kind of looks like it. She definitely looks like it. No, let's just name her Homura. Alright. So classes, we only have 4 characters, we'll keep their classes static. There's this whole slew of stuff here that you can change for traits. These are more like details. It's going to be part of our design section. Right now we just want to get the overall idea of what we want, so let me just write that down. So current goal, so that I don't forget this. Make characters, make classes, make enemies. I'm trying to decide if I want to do the map planning at this stage. We can probably save it for later. So we'll do this much, and then also do skills. Hold on. Need to make sure this actually shows up. Because I make this too long, it doesn't show up on the screen, and that's a bad thing. Yeah, how? Okay, I don't understand. I don't understand how the sizing on this thing works. Chat log mode. What is chat log mode? Guess I haven't fixed it. Chat log limit, let's say 100. Alright, so enemies, skills. Does that show? It does not. Why? Maybe I should have tested this part of... Yeah, I probably should have tested this part before I streamed it. Didn't realize there was a size limit to this thing. Well, let's see how it likes direct input then. Because I'm having it read from a file right now. Doesn't like that either. Okay, let's see. Edit transform size is... Let's try 500. Nope, that's not good. That's not good. Reset that. Ah! Too big. Way too big. It's like gigantic text I have to deal with right now. Okay, squish this down some more. I wish I can just have it... Oh wait, I can do that, can I? Fit to screen, there we go. Why didn't I do that sooner? What I really want to do though is have this go further down, but it's not letting me. I guess I'll just have to move stuff to the top. That's probably the next best thing. There it kind of sort of works. It's a little bit scuffed, but it kind of sort of works. Okay, so current goal, characters, classes, enemies, skills. Let me check my checklist also. Items, equipment. So planning, design, kind of, like I said, kind of go hand in hand. We're kind of doing both at the same time. But as far as the main goal, it's always going to be this up here. Simple RPG with 1 town and 1 dungeon. That is the main overall goal. It's kind of like a mission statement. And this is what we'll work with. Alright. I need to find a spot where I can put this and not cover up anything important. Yeah, there's no good place to put this. Let's put it here for now then. Okay, so we have 4 characters. Each of them is going to receive a unique class. You can have them all the same class. That's perfectly fine. But for the purposes of this game that we're making, we want it to be different classes. So we have a tank. We'll just call it tank. And then we have our fighter. We'll call it fighter. This would be Priscilla's class. And then we have our medic. And also then we have our DPS. What would a DPS be? Let's just call it DPS for now. The thing about these labels on the classes is they may or may not show up in the game itself, so if you just want it to be purely informative for yourself, that is perfectly fine. These do not have to show up in the game anywhere, so if it's clear to you, then it's clear to you. It doesn't have to be clear for anyone else as far as the game is concerned. But we do have to assign the classes correctly here, otherwise all these stat stuff and equipment and curves like that do not, they need to be assigned here so that these characters will actually have proper classes and all that stuff. Now, as far as initial equipment and all that goes, we're going to deal with that later. We're also going to deal with skills and stuff later. But we can definitely do class skills now if we wanted to. Let's just check our enemies really quick. Let's see who we have. So we got a goblin, we got a gnome, crow, treant. So these are just the base monsters that we have here. I think for what we're going to make though, let's make 10 monsters total. And we'll keep some of these as default for now. We can always change these later. So what other monsters can we put in here? Let's see what our options are. So we can actually, so there's going to be like a separate, what do you call it? There's going to be a separate folder in your directories where you can put like front view characters, or I think there's a side view. I think these are all front view for this case. So let's add some characters here. We're gonna do the army gorilla. Gonna have a gorilla as a monster. What else can we get? Demon of the universe. Really? Drone? Okay, fine. Let's put a drone there. Let's call this drone. Then we'll call this gorilla. Someone had fun making some of these. This is not the best RPG Maker of art I've ever seen, but this is actually not terrible either. And if I had the time to add the resources for friends, sprites, what do you call this? Character art, I would have done that. Okay, so what do we have here? Cyborg. That doesn't look like a cyborg. That looks like something else. I don't know what, but that's not a cyborg. Let's see what else we can put here. Killer teddy bear. Sure, why not? Jiangshi. That's a little bit more skeleton than a normal Jiangshi. I don't think I like that too much. Clown. Mad scientist. Mafia. We already have one gun guy. We don't need another gun guy. Phoenix. Ogre. Security bot. Slaughter bot. Oh my gosh, it's a Metal Gear. We cannot not have this. So this is not Metal Gear. What are we gonna call this? This is going to be, and we can change. There's like a color changer here if we want to like palette swap characters really easily. So let's make this super. What's the default color? Orange. Kind of burnt orange. Let's make this. I kind of wanted red, but it's a little tough to get red for some reason. There we go. So Metal Gear. What else can we call this? Metal. Oh jeez. I need names. What can we call this other than Metal Gear? Because it looks so Metal Gear. Hard Gear. Metal Slug. No. I'm trying to think like Metal Gear DX. And I want to not say gear in here. Metal. Let's say Metalbot DX. Let's say Metalbot DX. So we have Gorilla, Drill, and Metalbot DX. This is obviously gonna be a boss. If it's not a boss, then what's the point? Zombie Dog, Workbot. Let's see what is all here. Undyne. Oh, that's a pretty neat one. Special Forces. I don't think so. This is SF, but what is science fiction? What are these monsters doing in science fiction? I don't understand. Cyborg, I guess if we wanted to be edgy or something. Sandworm is interesting. Plasma. Mimic, of course, mimics. Oh, actually, let's go and put a mimic in here. I wasn't going to do that, but this would be good for a eventing example in the future. So we're gonna put a mimic here. And make a note for myself. Use as eventing example. Kind of covered a little bit of it, but hopefully that's understandable. And then I feel like we need a normal human to fight. Ah, Kate's. Are you serious? That looks too cute to fight. I kind of don't want to. Demon. This looks pretty last boss. The Metal Gear is not last boss in this case. You know what? Let's go for it. We'll go with the stereotypical last boss look, and maybe change the color up a little bit just to see if anything looks better. I kind of like this plant-looking vibe with the green and orange and maybe red. Kind of getting fall colors there. We'll just call it last boss for now. So as far as monsters go, we have our monsters that we're going to go through. There's some low-level monsters here that we have from default. We're going to worry about stats and all that stuff later, because this is going to be part of the, I want to say, the design portion, where we decide how is damage going to scale and all that stuff. Now, as far as damage formulas, there's so many ways to go about it, and different damage formulas are going to, what do you call this, result in, well, different damage formulas have different goals in mind. Like the damage formula you would find in a MOBA is not the same damage formula you would find in an RPG. In an RPG, you might want damage to go all the way down to 0 or 1. In a MOBA, if you scale defense up so high that the damage you receive gets down to 0 or 1, most people are not going to like that in certain cases, because if you can stack defense, and no matter how much attack and armor penetration someone else stacks, and you barely do any damage to them, that seems a little unfair, right? So there's a balance thing going on there. Now, we may not do that much planning as far as damage formulas here, because generally when you pick a damage formula, there's a little bit of research that goes into that. Sometimes not much research at all. You can use a default that's in here. But maybe I'll make a small section at some point going over some pros and cons of some really common damage formulas, like attack minus defense, scaling, less diminishing returns. Those are the main two, and then there's some weird ones that it's like variations on the others. So yeah. That might be a whole session by itself, but for now we might go with something like attack minus defense. Take the Paper Mario route. And we'll make like a minimum damage of, if for some reason you would have taken 0 damage, make it 1 damage, so that it's not like one-sided. But anyway, so let's see. So we got characters down, that's done. Classes done, enemies done, skill, items, and equipment. I would like to go back to classes and make like assign skills, items, all that stuff, but let's go ahead and do basic items first. Now you can see that we have some items pre-coded here already. We can definitely keep this. It makes things a lot easier on us as far as having to make this all from scratch, but if you really want to customize this to tailor your game in particular, then you would redo all of this stuff. But do take note on how these items are designed so you know how to code your items correctly. So for this one, let's just take one healing item. If you double click on this part, you have several options for recover HP, MP, TP. State is like your status effects. These are status effects, and debuffs and buffs both are in here. So do you want to add it? Is this for sure gonna add it 100% at a time, or is it like not always going to happen? And then you have your remove state. So if a debuff is on there, like say you're dead, will it remove death or stuff like that? You can also add, so I guess debuff and buff has a separate, what do you call this? Has a separate, trying to find the word. Has separate settings in this game. But you can definitely use states to add and debuff, buff, that kind of thing. And these, I think, are just set by the editor to go with stats. Because typically when you think of buffs and debuffs in this setting, you're generally thinking, is it going to increase or decrease certain stats, not necessarily like is it a good status effect or a bad status effect as far as buff and debuff is concerned. Those we would call states. Like HP regen is a positive state, but poison is a negative state, that kind of thing. But yeah, when we're talking buff and debuff, we generally mean affecting a stat. Now, what if you actually didn't like the base stats in the game and you wanted to completely redo it? Then you would have to script that. We're not going to get into scripting in this tutorial at all, in this series at all, just because there's so much you can do with that. That it's a little bit difficult for me to figure out where we should start first and then go to. My suggestion with that is experiment in your own time, or if you are saying something like, but this takes too much time, I don't want to code all of this, then you can always use scripts that other people have made. That is always an option. Now, it might cost you money, or the script may not be reliable or whatever. That's up to you. But if someone else has made it and you can tweak it further from there, that's probably your best option. So yeah. Anyway, as far as items go, I guess we don't have to change anything too much here. There seems to be some basic item enhancement stuff, debuffs. Now, whenever you see these labels like recovery items, especially items in the database, you can actually use these lines in the database just as purely labels. These will not show up in the game unless you make them show up in the game. At that point, they really don't do anything at all. So yeah, just be careful about that, what items you want to show up and not show up in the game. And then we'll adjust these values later as we keep making this, and we're not gonna mess with it just now because this is also a rabbit hole. Let's see. Weapons. So we're actually going to probably limit it to like 3 weapon classes. Not 3 weapon classes. 3 of each equipment types. What I mean by that is, let's say the tank uses a shield as their primary weapon. We'll just give them like a beginner shield, mid shield, and end game shield. Because this is going to be a really small game, but if your game is longer, you're definitely gonna find different ways to do progressions in your items. A lot of times, people when they make items, equipment, for me they tend to be very boring. What I mean by that is, you have one piece of equipment and then it becomes immediately obsolete the next piece of equipment you get. So it's like, it's a better stat, it's just better stats. The next piece of equipment is better stats, and then the other one is like tossed out. Sure, okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense, but that kind of gets into more like design theory. How do you want your equipment to behave? There's also part of planning, to where if you get new equipment, is it going to make your previous equipment obsolete? Or is there going to be a choice between one equipment or another depending on what you want to do? Like one's more offense, one's more defense. Now, you might think more choice is better for the player, and in some cases it is, depending on what you're trying to make. But a suggestion I have from one of my friends is to make the item progression, equipment progression, stats, all that stuff, a little bit more linear at first. And then if there's room for customization, then add the customization later. But I think for the most part, it just makes it so that it's easier for you to develop, one, and then two, it's also easier for the player to figure out this character works this way, this character works that way, that kind of thing. But I mean, customization is always something that is nice in a game, regardless of what it is. You just have to figure out what direction you want, how much customization are you going to allow, and what direction for the customization you're gonna allow. That's a little bit too big of a topic for what we're doing, so we're not going to worry too much about this. We're gonna make this as simple as possible. So yes. Alright, but anyway, as far as weapons go, we're gonna have to scratch all these weapons. We're gonna do this all from scratch. So we have 4 characters times 3, that's 12 pieces of equipment each. Let's say 15 here because I want a little bit of space to make this readable once we get to it. So let's get our base stuff first. So we need to think of the weapons we're going to use for our characters. In this case, we have our tank character. He looks like a robot, but he is also a tank. So what is our tank going to use? We can put shields as armor. That's definitely not a issue. There's a shield slot here, head, body, accessory. If you want different labels and options for this, script that. You have to script that. We'll just use what we got. So if we have a shield as a weapon and a shield slot here that we want to use on our characters, you can definitely do that, double shields. But you can also make a shield as a weapon. So for this case, our tank is probably going to use a shield as a weapon for defense, also a weapon for attack and defense. Where's the shield icon actually? I don't see a shield icon. Oh, here's the shield icon. So for the initial weapon, we'll give our tank a Warren shield. we'll worry about stats when we get there. We just want to get the labels in for now. And then we have our fighter character. My fighter character does not seem to favor one weapon or another. If you look at her, it looks like she's ready to throw hands. I feel like she's ready to throw hands, and by throw hands I mean literally. So we're gonna give her like fist type weapons for this one. The gloves. So our third character is actually going to be a little bit unique because they're a cat. Cats have their own weapons, claws. But since this is a game, you can make the weapons anything you want. So in this case, we can probably make the weapon something like scarves. Like have a scarf around the cat as something that gives him courage, something that'll increase attack and all that stuff. Can't find my scarf. I think that's the closest to scarf I can find. Maybe this one. So we'll use that. So scarf. So knit scarf. Now they can also go weaponless if you want them to be weaponless. Just keep in mind their stat growth. Like, do you want their stats to increase pretty high compared to having to like what it would be if they had a weapon, that kind of thing. But yeah, we can also use something that's not a weapon as a weapon for our slots here. And then our healer. Let's go to our healer. Well, she looks like she's about to throw hands too, but we need her to actually heal people. So, since this is kind of more like a modern day setting, which also is part of the reason you want to figure out modern day, what is the plan for this game. So I don't think we actually mentioned it. The only thing we mentioned is simple RPG, one town, one dungeon. But is it going to be a modern day RPG? Is this going to be a mix of modern day and fantasy? Think Shin Megami Tensei or the Persona series for a modern day kind of RPG. Dragon Quest would be a classic RPG. Final Fantasy is a mix of modern and fantasy, depending on which series you're looking at. So I think there's a few games that's a mix of both in the same game. So there's also that distinction. But a lot of these are going to be these classes, weapons, and skills are going to be heavily dependent on what kind of game you want to make. Like if we're talking about Omori. We're talking about Omori as an example. And let me just well, I'm not going to put the characters here, but if we're talking about Omori, for example, we have 4 characters there, correct? So we have Omori, who's probably your all-rounder. He's not technically a DPS, though he does play a DPS role for the most part. He's also kind of a, I want to say a debuffer, but mainly for just attack and defense. And then there's Kel. Kel's a speedster. Now some people might actually describe him as the wizard type. I don't exactly see that. He's more like a wind-up character, depending on whether or not you utilize his flex skill, which makes his next attack stronger, but it really depends. I'm not sure I see the wizard archetype in his design. His design, I feel like, is definitely more of a DPS thief if we're going that route. Aubrey is most definitely your DPS character. She's also fairly beefy, and so DPS character, fairly beefy, a little bit slow. Generally, you want to decide in your in your design phase, is this character going to be strong? Do they have any downsides? There's a reason why strong characters are slow, to offset, it's like to give them some sort of drawback so they're not too powerful. That's going to be part of your design process. And then you have Hero, which is your healer. The slowest character in the game, interestingly enough. I'm not sure why that decision was particularly there, but in universe it kind of makes sense. Hero's not very athletic, at least not in that portion of the game, so he is slow. But he does hold up fairly well when taking damage. So he's both a healer slash tank, but he's not. Yeah, he's kind of both healer and tank, so it's kind of like a paladin type, I suppose, without the damage to back up the paladin part. So yeah, I mean, and when you play the game, if you haven't played Omori, give it a try. Very, very, very good, by the way. But if you played Omori, then you notice there's no real class names attached to them. The game is made in RPG Maker MV, I believe. So the previous version, the version before MV. And you don't see the character, the classes for each character, which definitely not required for RPG Maker games. You can hide that if you want to. These are specifically labels for you. So if you want this to make it as simple as possible, then make it as simple as possible. But you still need to assign stats and parameters to each one of them, and make sure that they are what you want them to be. Where was that? I think I got off topic. As far as classes and weapons and stuff. Modern day RPG and fantasy RPG, that's right. So modern day RPG-ish was like, I guess you can call it a modern day RPG. So that's part of the planning phase. But yeah, I think Saffredine Alley, welcome to the stream, and thank you. Thank you for reminding me. I talk, and I forget to drink water, but thank you. I do drink as I go, but I get really, really thirsty really quickly, so I'm not exactly sure what I can do to mitigate that, but it is what it is. But anyway, we're still in our planning phase right now. We have made our characters, we've started on classes, we started on enemies. We haven't even gotten to skills yet. Items we have kind of sort of not really done anything, because there's a lot of preset items that a new project gives us. So we'll probably just modify this as we need to. Because right now we have no idea how we're going to balance the game. We don't know our HP values, stats, that kind of thing. If you're making an RPG, there's so much more that you have to think about. But if you're just making something like a hide and go seek or mystery, you don't have to worry about a lot of these stats. You can just do characters and then jump into your design for how you want the game to feel and all that stuff, and then mapping, and then you're done. But in RPG, we're gonna go the extra mile here and actually figure out how we want to do all this other things. But anyway, so our fourth character is our medic. Now we can give them like a traditional staff or something, but I'm kind of if we can find a syringe, that'll probably then be the next best thing, or give them a book. I guess that's maybe actually give them a weapon this time. Yeah, I'm not finding a syringe, so maybe a book would be the next best thing. By the way, if I haven't mentioned it before, you can actually change these icons or add icons to this whenever you actually have the project yourself. I'm just using the defaults for everything because I want to also kind of show you what we can do with the base maker. But definitely if you're gonna do something a little bit more ambitious or fancy, change the assets, please change the assets. Even if you're doing like a cutscene, change the assets to make it a little bit more unique. Okay, we'll just give her a book. Pretty sure she can. Pretty sure our healer can find some spells there to heal ourselves. We'll worry about stats and stuff later. Armor, we're just gonna give everyone the same armor. You can have different armor classes if you want. Oh, also, yeah, we can give everyone the same armor class if you want, or different armor classes. I guess typically you would have like a light armor, heavy armor, but those are guidelines, they are not rules. So yeah. In this case though, I don't think I want to deal with armor in general, just because it gets a little bit complicated. So instead we will focus on accessories as our armor. And for the database you do have you can put accessories in here. Now I may go back later off stream and add armor if the game wants me to put armors and stuff as placeholders, but we don't have to. I'm just gonna do accessories for now. Let's see. I guess if I delete it, and let's just have like very few accessories so that it's not too complicated. So we're going to probably make something like attack ring, defense ring, speed ring, crit ring. Why is it rings? Because I'm lazy. You can make this anything you want to, but we'll just say rings for now. Regen ring. So this particular accessory, when equipped, will automatically heal your HP. I think we can also do a drain ring. I'm not sure if I can code this without script, but this particular accessory will give you HP or MP draining abilities. If I can actually script that, otherwise this might get changed later. And then we're also gonna try going for a guts ring. You know, I think 7 is enough for now. Let's just keep it there for now. If we need to add more, we'll add more later. But we'll just make a short description for each one of these as part of our planning phase to figure out what we want to do with these. But yeah, a lot of things you do to make a game. It doesn't matter if it's an RPG, platformer, or whatever. It's gonna be very tedious at the start, especially when it comes to planning and design. You just don't go in and start coding everything from scratch. It doesn't work that way. You have to know where you want to go to and how you're gonna get there. I mean, it's like just like anywhere else. You just can't teleport to where the store is as much as you want to. You have to figure out how you're gonna get to the store. Are you gonna get there by car? Are you gonna get there by walking? Are you gonna get there by public transportation? Or are you gonna find another way to get there besides teleportation? Because teleportation does not work yet. Even if teleportation did work, someone made the plans to make that teleportation work. Unless somehow you knew magic to do teleportation, and then okay, well, there's training or talent, I don't know. But yeah. Let's just make descriptions for this though. Increases attack. By how much, we'll figure that out later. So increases attack, increases defense, increases speed, increases crit rate, maybe a crit damage also, but that's something else. Recovers HP per turn, drains HP, and then prevents death. We don't have any status effect preventing items here. I'll probably put one. And there's gonna be, we're gonna call it a ribbon. This is like the general term for, at least the general status effect blocker in the Final Fantasy series anyway. But you can have different items for this. Block status effects. Okay, so we have items, weapons, armor, though it's kind of like accessories in this case. Now we gotta do skills. This is going to be difficult. So, for skills, we'll set some guidelines. 4 active skills and 1 passive. That's going to be our guideline for skills. If we do more than that, we will be here forever. So I don't think I'm going to code everything from scratch in this stream, just because it does get a little tedious. What I will do though is probably set the guidelines for what we're going to do for each character, the basic skills and all that stuff, and then maybe code one character from start to finish. Now, when I say code, I don't mean scripting, which involves going to the JavaScript and changing things there. We're not doing that. That's a little bit too much as far as this is concerned, but we will do instead these settings, and you can actually do a lot already with this, but I'll do just one character. One character's worth of coding and inventing here. Let me just delete everything that's in here though. And let's see, how many skills do we need? Okay. Oh, did I get rid of enemy skills too? Oh well. Let me see if, yeah, we'll worry about that another time. I'll probably do the enemy skills at another time. But apparently there's a thing for attack and guard here already. Let me just check to see what we got here. So the default formula in this game is attack times 4 minus defense times 2. Now, this will always guarantee that you will get through their defense. Not all, well, I guess it doesn't always guarantee, but it's like an attack minus defense formula, where it's like, let me just write it down. It's kind of like that kind of formula, as opposed to what you would have in a MOBA, which is like attack times defense divided by scaling equals damage. Typically, this is more of the MOBA competitive game approach, and this is the general RPG formula. I say general because there's definitely a lot of variation from game to game. Like, I know almost for certain that in the Final Fantasy series, or at least Final Fantasy VII, they don't really use attack minus defense. It's closer to the MOBA scaling, where it's like, I think some raw damage divided by whatever your defense is, times whatever your defense is divided by 255, I believe. It's been a while since I've seen that. I don't even know how people derived these things back in the day. There's definitely a way to derive damage formulas if you knew what you were doing, but even then. There's approximations with RNG, so it's a bit iffy. But to make this simple for us, and so that we don't get too confused in how we're doing this, I'm gonna change this formula from attack minus defense. That is as basic as it's gonna get. Now, is there a way for me to actually make a minimum damage here? That is the question. And you can base the damage off anything. Apparently, according to the tooltip, you can use any stat you want, even including level, for damage. So this will be useful for when we actually do these skills. But for this one, we'll be doing this instead. So attack minus defense. Yeah, I kind of wonder. So this is actually using JavaScript behind scenes. I wonder though if I can make this like a... I wonder if I can do it like this. Let me just make sure this is the right thing. Max in JS. I'm hoping this works, otherwise I'm probably gonna get an error later. Because I want the minimum damage to be 1, but there's no way other than scripting to do this, I believe. So we're gonna try this, and hopefully, this gets me the result I want. So what I'm doing here with the formula is attack minus defense will always be your damage. But if I want the damage to be at least 1, we'll take the maximum of attack minus defense, or 1. So if the attack minus defense formula gets down to 0 or lower, then it'll at least do 1. If it's higher than 1 though, then it'll do whatever damage it is. Hopefully this works. I don't know if it'll work like this. If it doesn't, that's fine. If it does, then that's better. But just keep in mind we're using JavaScript for this one. I think this is the JavaScript command for this. Now variance is your RNG for the damage. So this is like plus or minus 20% is the default, which is, if you ask me, is a little bit too much in most cases. Like let's say your damage is 1000, this is your base damage. So your variance, if your variance is 20%, that'll go anywhere from oh crap, it doesn't show. Why do you not show? Let me move that up. So anyway, what it'll be is with 20% variance that your damage is gonna go from 800 to 1200. Now, some of you who play the games that have this huge of a variance may say, hey, that's not too bad, and it may not be. But if you want something more strategic, the closer the variance is to 0, the better. If we're doing an attack minus defense formula though, where it is like super strategic, then you want this variance to be closer to 0. So in this case, I will actually make it 0% variance just to make it easier to work with. Critical hits, huh? So let's see what the critical hit formula is. Whether or not to enable critical hits. Enable critical hits is determined based on the critical rate, evasion. That seems to be a little bit... So critical hit and critical evasion seems to be a RPG Maker quirk compared to how you would think of critical hits. Now in some games critical hits are just determined, well, most games critical hits are just determined by critical rate, right? So your critical rate can be any number, and it usually scales to 100, whether and how likely is it going to work, how likely you land a critical hit. But in some other games, which happens very, very rarely, but it does happen. I think I've seen maybe 2 games so far do it, where there's a critical evasion formula, which... So critical evasion would be like some kind of subtraction from critical hit, or like say a crit is rolled, but you have a chance to roll for an evasion. It's not necessarily a direct subtraction, it's more like another RNG on top of RNG. Which, I don't know, it just sounds a little bit too complicated. Now, I don't know if this happens in D&D, where if there's a crit, you can roll to avoid the crit. I don't know if that happens, because I don't play enough D&D to know. But it's going to be part of your planning and design to figure out, is this something you want to happen? And for me, personally, I don't like the idea of critical evasion unless there's a reason to include it. So yeah, in this case though, we're not going to do critical evasion, we're going to do critical hits. I don't know if there's a way to do critical evasion. Let me see. Targets critical evasion rate. I wonder if monsters have that. Ah, it's over here. It's over here. So there's an extra parameter for critical evasion, and you can set this or not, depending on how you want to do it. There's a few settings here. These are the very base settings as far as RPG Maker is concerned. I'm gonna make myself a little bit smaller, just so you can see that. A little bit smaller still. Yeah, I think it's fine. So we're gonna do, so these are like some of the basics of like stats and extra stats that you don't normally see on the screen that you can adjust. But in this case, we're probably not going to do critical evasion for most of these monsters. I don't think it's necessary. Unless for some reason, let's say you were designing a golem or some kind of hard metal or hard enemy, where regardless of your crit rate, you're not going to be able to penetrate that armor. Now, game mechanic wise, you know, there's a lot of games where crit rates will always translate to increased damage. But how do you want to do the increased damage? Is it a flat multiplier, like 50% damage increase, 200% damage increase? Or in some cases, does it penetrate defense? There are some that penetrate defense, and if the defense is close to 0 and you crit, okay, do you actually do more damage then, or does it not make a difference? It's that kind of thing. And you gotta think during your design phase how you want crits to behave and what that would be like, how well, generally speaking, how you want it to behave. Do you want it to behave like you hit a weak point randomly as you're attacking? Is that why you did a critical hit? Or do you want it to be like just an extra layer of RNG on top of everything else? And it's just nice to get those big numbers randomly. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It just depends on how you want to do it. And of course, there's gonna be the whole design thing of elemental weaknesses, whether to use them or not. Some games don't use them, some games do. More often than not, most people will use some sort of elemental weakness mechanic because it's fun. But sometimes the level of complexity is not required in the game you're using. So there's definitely that. There's so much we can go into here. But as far as this is concerned, we'll do attack minus defense, 1 minimum damage for our normal attack. Add state normal attack, we'll just leave this alone. I don't think this... So there's a bunch of settings here as far as skill type, which is a magic, special. Not gonna mess with that. Generally, when you do a normal attack, it's going to only hit one enemy. Now there's different targeting options here. Can you target both enemy and ally, or just enemy, or just the user? Do they have to be dead or alive? I think that's also a condition you can add. But basically you'll just play around here and figure out how you want to do that. But this is part of your design phase. We're not doing design quite just yet. We're still doing our planning. But I kind of veered off and did this. Alright, so tank. We do have enemy skills also that we can program, but we're not going to do this for now. So we're going to have our tank skills. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to have our fighter skills. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we're going to have our medic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need to move the thing. Let's put it up here. No, wait, there's no good place to put this. Let's put this right here. There's no good place to put that. And then we will need DPS. Just trying to figure out what our last class was. And skills easily take up a whole lot of slots in the database. That's just how it goes. So let's think of some basic skills for a tank. So for a tank to be effective, what would you want them to have? A provoke would be nice. This is an active skill that you would give a tank to draw attacks to them. Or you can do something like an enmity gauge, or what do you call this? Hate gauge, or I'm trying to think of the different names that this mechanic goes by. But basically, it's a prioritization thing that the enemy will have, depending on the actions that the players will do. So generally, how this works, let's just call it let's just call it the DPS scale for not the DPS scale, the DPS crap. I know in FF14 they call it enmity, so we'll call it enmity here also, because I don't know how else to describe this. So enmity. I hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, enmity. So for enmity, generally the higher damage you do, the more that the enemies will go after the one doing the DPS, because if the enemy is somewhat smart, they will always go after the DPS, take them out first before taking out everyone else, so that they don't take too much damage. But also what will trigger enmity are healers, because if you take the healer out, the rest of the party will crumble. The tank can only hold up so much damage, and unless they can heal themselves, they're not gonna last long. Even if they can heal themselves, they can probably only heal themselves a limited amount, bounce and all that. So that's something that enemies can do if you design them to do that by doing an enmity mechanic, or what do you call this? Yeah, by doing an enmity. I cannot say this word. Enmity mechanic. Now, I don't think I can do an enmity mechanic here per se, because I'm not quite sure how to do that from just base RPG Maker. I don't think it's actually possible. It might. But off the top of my head, I don't think I can do the targeting for enemies to do that. Let me double check just to make sure. So let's see, we have things here for enemies where that you can use certain skills, attack on certain turns, or always, if the party is dead, or has certain states, if the party level is some level, switch. Certain switches, certain conditions are activated, that's also a thing. But as far as doing enmity from scratch, it does not seem to be something I can do easily. That's gonna be a whole 30-minute or so workshop if I try to figure that out on screen. I'm not gonna do that. Not today anyway. That's more of the weeds in the detail. We're not gonna get into that. Right now we're just basically designing just the skills. But anyway, so what does a tank ideally need? They need a provoke. So we'll just name this provoke for now. We'll deal with the details later. What else are they gonna need? They're probably also going to need their own defense up. That would be helpful. Now, some tanks may not necessarily need this, but for this one, we're going to do it. What else could this tank possibly have? A self-repair. A self-repair would be nice. At least this is what I would put in my tank. A defense up, a provoke, a self-repair. If you guys have any suggestions for other classes, let me know. Classes are up there on the skills, so you know what we're gonna make. So if you have suggestions of what we could put here, then I'll definitely put them. No matter how bad of my idea it might seem. Because I partly want this to be a project between me and chat, so if you got suggestions for skills, throw them out there. So provoke, defense up, repair. Does a tank necessarily need attack skills? They can. They don't need to have them, but they definitely can. For this one though, if I make an attack skill for the tank, it's probably not going to hit very hard, but it will probably cause some stunning or disruption kind of status effects. That would probably be helpful. Probably more helpful in a MMO setting rather than this kind of setting. But let's call this Disrupt. Let's call this Disrupt. Let me see the skill types here. I guess these are just labels. Because there's no label for physical skill, but there's a label for magic and special. But it doesn't seem to be any specific function to these labels. I don't think so anyway. Okay. I wish I left some of the other skills up here as examples, but did not think that through, And okay, so we have 4 active skills. I also want to give 1 passive. So this is going to be the tank passive. You know what, let's not do the self-repair. I'm gonna get rid of self-repair actually. And for the passive, I want the tank to have a self-repair instead. So HP regen. So this is gonna be a very helpful thing for a tank to have. You can do it several ways. You can either, so there's several passives we can give a tank. HP regen, defense increases as HP gets lower. That's a favorite of mine. Not quite as broken as HP regen, I would feel like, or something similar. But it's a little hard to code it the way I want it to if I do that kind of thing. Like, it only activates when you're a certain HP or something. Yeah, we're probably not going to go that much detail into this. Let's see, provoke, defense, but let's do HP regen. That's fairly simple for a passive. So let's put something else here then. So they have a provoke, they have a defense up. What else can we put in here for a tank? We got a disrupt. So this is their attack skill. This is drawing everyone to them. This is increasing your defense. What else can we give tanks? Because what a good tank does is absorb damage and stays alive through that. Let's see. What other tank skills can we give? I think as far as the design I want for this, mini game that we're doing, I want to give everyone some kind of stat up skill that affects everybody. So for the tank we have defense up. For the fighter we have speed up. For the medic, for the DPS we have attack up. And for the medic, I don't think we'll give the medic anything because they're gonna have all the support skills. So it's gonna be heal. There's gonna be a heal for single. Heal all. Revive. And if we wanted to give the medic 1 attack skill, we could give them some sort of well, if this was a white mage in the Final Fantasy series, their 1 attack skill would be Holy, but we're not going to use Holy here because our medic is a cat. Now, it would be pretty rad if our cat can use Holy, but we're not going to do that here. Instead, what we'll probably do here is give them some sort of summon. And this isn't like a summon that's gonna linger around the battle. This is like a spell kind of thing. Like maybe summon other cats. We could do like a summon other cats here. and they would come in, attack, and do their cat thing. Let me just move this. There we go. There's no good place to put this anymore. There really isn't. So that's their skills. As far as their passive is gonna be, we can probably give them something like... Oh, not this one. No, I was gonna give them like an item efficiency, but item efficiency could be better used on someone else. What I mean by item efficiency is like, if they use an item, it'll be better than someone else who's not as good as using items at. So like if a potion heals 100 HP and someone has a item efficiency passive, that increases how like the item what do you call this? The item healing by 50%, so it goes from 100 to 150, that kind of thing. So, but I don't want to give it to the healer. They already have all this MP stuff, so I don't want to give it to them just yet. What should we give them instead? Oh wait, you know, I forgot something important here. They cannot damage. They don't have a damage skill. This is going to be a status removal. We'll give them a status removal skill. Somehow the cat knows how to remove poisons and all of that stuff. So status removal. Not a single attack spell to be found here. Sadness. But that's how it is. As far as passives though, since the cat is pretty nimble, we can probably give the cat like passive evasion increase. Now stat increases as passives have always seemed a little bit clunky to me. Why don't you just put them as... Why don't you just make the base stats higher than normal? I think in a way I can kind of see it, because you kind of just want to like... If you have a lot of characters to make, it's a pain in the butt to change each character's stats individually. It'd be easier to make like a base stat for everyone, and then have scalings based on that. But I don't see too much of a difference, though it is in a way an easier way to get like a comparison. Say someone is supposed to have 1.5 more HP than the base, which would be your tank, and then your mage is probably 0.5, has like 0.5 HP from the base, that kind of thing. I can see it that way. But for now, let's just say evasion increase, just because it's a cat, it's probably pretty fast. But it can also heal, so why not? And we'll put it on the skill. We might also put it here, but it's probably going to be on the skill. All right, our DPS has an attack up that they can use, but our DPS is fairly selfish. So this is going to be a ×2 damage increase, self only. That's how we're gonna do it for that one. And then we'll give them probably like elemental skills. So here's another part of the planning. Planning and design. Do you want to use elemental skills for the game? You can, if you want. Elemental skills does add a depth of strategy, but for us, this being very simple, I don't think we really need to go that far. So we'll just give very basic skills in this case. So we're gonna give them a 5 Fireball for their damage skill. No, you know what? No, we won't, because there's not enough enemies to justify that. We only have, what, 10 enemies? There's really no reason to justify this. If we do like an elemental thing, it's going to be like physical and magic. That is it. I think that would be like at the very... That would be the very basics for what we're going to do with elements. Is it physical? Is it magical? That sort of thing. So Fireball, we'll just call it Fireball for now. So what else can we give this supposed DPS to increase damage even further? Or do something to increase damage? Now, it looks kind of boring just having only 1 or 2 damage skills on your characters, but it's kind of how... Well, I mean, we can spice it up a little bit this way. So for the Fireball, will be like a single target Fireball. And this would be like Explosion, which targets all. So you can kind of do it that way. And then you could also do something like what does Megamine have? Let's think of Megamine. Megamine has MP increase skills, damage increase skills. Her only damage skill is Explosion, which takes up all of her MP and then some, because she doesn't have enough MP to begin with. Yeah, let's just take Megamine as our example. I mean, she's somehow increasing her damage to sky-high values, but she only has 1 skill. So what can we do? Fireball, Explosion, all. Damage increased. She has a lot of passive skills, but we're only going to give 1 passive to our mage, and it would be our passive here would be let's call it Magic Recharge, or Magic Charge. Damage increases as battle goes on. That's probably the passive. I'm not sure if there's an easy way to code this, but there probably is a way. Let's see if there is a way for me to do this. Because there probably is. Just have to figure out how. Parameters, EX parameter, SP parameter. What's an SP parameter? Oh, fuck, those stuff. Elemental states, speed, attack speed. What is attack speed? Okay, that's a specific thing for this game, for this thing. Attack times plus. This would be useful on a physical attacker, not so much a non-physical attacker. Okay, I don't see anything on that side that I can do. I can do this. How about... Oh, what I could do though. Damage increases based on TP. Now, TP is kind of like the value for your limit gauge in RPG Maker. That's just the default they have here. It can be anything you want it to be, and typically it doesn't do anything in this game unless you have a skill cost TP. But we can use it in the formula. to we can use in a formula to increase damage and all that stuff. So damage increase is based on TP. Now for the passives, these passives don't have to do anything by itself. What we could do is tack on the increase part based on TP onto the damage forms of these. Maybe not the best way to go about it, but we're trying to see what we can do with the limits of the software itself. Hello, Daniel Richardson. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing? Welcome to the stream. We're going through right now our planning phase still of our RPG Maker game. So what we're covering today is both planning and design. The design phase can take a very long time depending on how much stuff you have to tweak. Well, how much settings you have to change. So what we're doing right now is deciding skills for our characters. We haven't set any specifics for those skills because if we did that, we will be here for 12 hours. Planning and design takes a very long time. So I'm kind of condensing this to designing the skills, designing classes, designing weapons, armors, enemies, that kind of thing. Those are fairly easy to do. But once you get down to the nitty-gritty of damage formulas and all that stuff, we're only probably going to do one character at most, because that takes a little while. And maybe set up one enemy, because that also takes a little while. And I'll probably do a bunch of stuff off stream, and whenever I'm ready to do the next part, then we can keep going. But there's a lot of stuff to do in planning and design before you actually make the game proper. All this database stuff, we have to set this up. And there's like design documents that we haven't really gone into but touched on. We have to set all this stuff up before we can get all these visuals ready. So these are all the stuff behind the scenes of a game, basically. There's a lot of things to do. There is a lot of things to do. I was kind of struggling to figure out how I was going to do this stream, and I'll be honest, this is kind of like me running off the cuff. I'm basically doing impromptu on everything here right now. But we're only covering a small portion of what we actually have to do for now. Because once we're done with the basic planning and design, which we'll do just a small amount, just for example, we'll do mapping next time, which should be a little bit more interesting to look at. 33 skills, but they're not all skills. They're not all skills. There's some empty spaces here for labels and all that stuff. So right now I'm trying to figure out what our fourth skill we can give our DPS class, which in this case is kind of like a mage. And we need one passive and 4 skills for our physical fighter. Those are what we have to think about right now before we can move on. So as far as the DPS is concerned, I have like a damage ×2 increase skill. There's no proper names to these, just what I want to do for the effects. You want to know what the skills do before you give them any fancy names like lay on hands or turn undead or Magnus Exorcimus. You want to know what these skills do first before you give them any fancy names. That is part of your planning. That is part of your planning. You can't, if you want to go all chuny on your names and then forget later on what they do, that's on you. That is on you. But we have a damage to increase skill for our DPS, a single target spell, multi-target spell, depending on the situation. And the multi-target spell, when we actually get into the design later, would probably actually do less damage than the single target, because that's kind of how you want to do it. Lay on Hands is a weird name. Yeah, it is. Well, take that to Magic the Gathering, because I think Magic has Lay on Hands, which, depending on how you think of the name, Lay on Hands is either you sitting on your hands or laying your hands on someone else, but it can be taken both ways. But what's actually shown is, I think, laying hands on someone else to heal them. I think I remember seeing the card. I don't play Magic, but I remember seeing the card. I think that's what it does, but it is a weird name. But yeah, let's see, what can we give for our 4th DPS skill? Because right now our DPS skill has has a single target, multi-target, damage increase. I also have this other skill where it's like their damage increases depending on how high their special gauge is. So we already have 2 damage skills. So I think what we probably want to aim for in this case is some sort of support skill, either for themselves or the party. That's the question though. What should we do? This is actually tougher than I thought it would be. If we were doing like elemental stuff, this would not be difficult, but then we would also fill all our slots up with different elemental skills that leaves room for nothing else. And the skills would probably all be multi-target, which for this game in particular, I don't think I want to do that. Kind of just want to showcase what you can do with just magic and physical attacks. A health skill of defense. Health skill of defense. How would this work? Not quite sure what health skill of defense is. Because we already have a medic. The medic has a single heal, heals everyone, the revive, and the status removal. And also the medic has a passive of increasing evasion, because our medic is a cat. Our medic is a cat. I'm not sure if showing what the DPS class looks like helps with anything. Oh. How about this instead? How about this? So we have a fighter here that generally does normal damage, like physical damage. What if we give our DPS an armor piercing damage? Would it make sense to put that on the DPS, or would it make sense to put that on the fighter? Because right now we do not have anyone that has a debuff. Wait. Who would the debuff be better on? Would the debuffs be better on the fighter, or would the debuffs be better on the DPS? Make them more bulky. Yeah, I don't think we have enough skill slots for that. But you do make a point there. The tank though. The tank though does have a defense up skill for everyone. So maybe it kind of help. Maybe they can take that role. And the defense up would be effectively the same as the HP up. I don't know if this makes a difference either. But currently our attack formula, I am covering it up here. Our attack formula is attack minus defense. We're not doing anything too fancy with this. This is kind of like Paper Mario formula. Though our damage will not go to 0, it will always do at least 1 point of damage. I don't know if that makes any difference though. But I'm covering it with a tooltip. There we go. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about putting an HP increase skill on the DPS. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Generally, for a magic DPS or a physical DPS, for a physical DPS, I do see the evasion mechanic quite a bit. For a magic DPS, name me one magic DPS that actually has an HP increase, because I would be curious, because I can't think of any right now. Normally, it's hit hard on single target, hit hard on multiple targets. Double your damage next turn. That's a popular one. Or let's see. I mean, sometimes they have debuffs, but that's kind of like an exception rather than the norm. Speaking of debuffs, I think we'll put the debuffs on the fighter though. Or how about putting like oh, this actually does counter DPS also. How about we'll do like a speed up on the DPS. So I have the speed up buff on the fighter, but we'll probably take that out from them instead. Speed up also contributes to increasing DPS. Maybe maybe that's okay. Because we don't have a debuffer just yet. Speaking of debuffer, I was trying to figure out what else we can give the tank for a skill. The tank has a provoke. They have a defense increase on the party. They have a disrupt, which can do like a stun on a single target. But I think we can also give the tank a defense debuff. Single target. We can probably do that, something like that. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And then for the fighter, we'll give them a multi-attack passive. This is a passive. So they can attack more than once, or hit more than once in a single turn with normal attacks. Fighter passive hits more than once per turn. That'll be a job for the wish. So debuff? The debuff stuff? I mean, I can see that. That's why I was kind of wondering if I should put it on the DPS, but our DPS is kind of, so we only have one tank, a physical fighter. This is our medic, and this is our DPS, which in this case is like a magic DPS. The fighter, not technically a physical DPS, but they are a physical. They do physical damage. Okay, we'll do the debuff on the. We'll do the debuff on the DPS then, because that does serve to further increase damage. Now we're kind of concentrating all the things that will increase damage onto one character. Instead of spreading it out, having them work as a team. So part of the design process of this is, what roles do you give certain characters? How do you spread the skills out? Well, obviously the medic is going to have all the medic skills, right? They have all the healing skills and status removal. That's their job. No one else probably should have that. The tank protects the party, or at least reduces damage from the party if they can't take the damage themselves. Like if an enemy does AoE, probably can't protect the entire party from that skill, but they should be able to at least reduce damage for everyone if they do something like a phalanx thing or whatever. Let's see. I guess in this case, we can still give the DPS a debuff, since it does kind of play into that role of decreasing the defense to increase damage. Now, this is kind of a multi-step process where you have the DPS debuff the defense, and then if they want to go for the ×2 damage for even more damage, they can do that before actually launching the attack. Now, at the end of the day, is it worth it to do that, or is it more worth it to do the debuff and then have them go for the attack as soon as the debuff is down? I guess that depends on how much defense that the enemy is losing, right? Because sometimes it may be worth it, sometimes it may be not. You know what? Let's good or bad skill, doesn't matter. We'll go ahead with a defense debuff in this case. But those are just some foods for thought. Defense debuff. And then our fighter. Wait, tank. So the tank's job is to reduce damage. In this case, we'll have also the tank do attack debuff. I think we can do it this way. Now our fighter is basically trying to deal as much damage as possible with physical attacks. So physical attacks, what can they do? Everyone has at least one debuff skill. Let's give the fighter one debuff skill also. It's going to be an speed or evasion debuff. Maybe a speed debuff, because I'm going to try to get rid of as much RNG as possible in this project. But if we can do a speed debuff, hopefully we can get everyone's. Let's say we have a fast enemy, and the fighter does a speed debuff on a fast enemy. Hopefully that brings them down to like a lower, like it makes them act. It makes the enemy act later the next turn, and then we can get all our attacks healing done before the enemy attacks again. Buys us some time, though. I know speed debuff as a mechanic I don't think works too well in a turn-based setting that's not CTB or ATB. The way RPG Maker's battle phase is done by default, it's like your turn. It's like not your turn, enemy's turn. That's a phase turn battle. It's more like each turn everyone rolls on their turn order, but I don't think it carries over to the next turn. I don't think it works that way. And no, you're fine. You're fine if it's fine if you're not typing. If you're doing something else, that's totally fine. I appreciate the company regardless. But if you have any ideas, definitely toss them out. I'm just trying to figure out planning-wise how we should do the skills here. Because if you don't do your planning, this is part that everything else is going to take much longer. And I've already gone 2 hours on this very sparse planning with just this many stuff. Normally this part would take much longer because you're not doing just skills, characters, and all that stuff. You're also doing like character design from scratch, story design from scratch, the long-term goal from scratch, all that stuff. But we're kind of like shortcutting a lot of this stuff already because it should not be this long for stream purposes. If I wanted to do this proper, it would be much longer. But I kind of just want to like give a brief summary. So let's see, for fighter, let's not do the speed debuff because I don't think it makes much sense in here. Instead though, we'll give the fighter We'll give the fighter some a skill that ignore defense attack. Let me make this clearer, actually. Ignore def attack. There we go. So they can strike at the enemy, ignore their defense. It sounds very strong on paper, but only if the enemy has a lot of defense to begin with. If the enemy has like a low defense, it's probably not going to do that much more damage, and you probably have better options. Alright, so we have that. We can also probably use something like... I was going to give the fighter all the debuff skills, but the debuff skills had been spread out to other characters, so what else can we use here? No characters have a status effect skill right now, other than buff and debuff, which is fine actually. Like if we gave someone a poison skill, that would probably be a little too OP in this case, so we're not going to give them a poison skill. We'll just have them do damage and then figure out a way to mitigate those damage. Okay, so what should I do here? So multi-attack, let's just say the multi-attack hits twice, 2 times each turn. And then the fighter will have a unique mechanic where they have an ultimate, where they uses TP to unleash a skill, to use a skill. So there's gonna be their one big attack. Always crits. Pretty darn strong if you ask me. But it does come at a cost, so it's not like it's without drawbacks or some kind of cooldown. Speaking of which, cooldown does not exist in this game by default. That is a script. So we're not going to be doing like cooldown mechanics as much as I want to add it in. Instead, we're going to be using MP and TP mechanics instead to balance how often we can use his skills. Alright, so we have an ignore defense, but it's not the same as crits for the ultimate. When I guess in this case, you can handle crits different ways. You can have crits do just increased damage normally, or you can have crits also do ignore defense. There's many ways to do crits. I'm not sure how this one handles crits. I think it's just an increased damage and not ignore defense. So ignore defense attack is not the same as the crit that this one will have. I do need to give one more skill here for our fighter. I don't think anyone has an attack up. Like, the DP has is a ×2 damage increase, but that's for themselves only, so we'll give the fighter the attack up all. Alright, I think this is as basic as we can get for the skill planning on these characters. And then I have to do monster skills at some point. I'm gonna do that off stream. I'm gonna do that off screen because I screwed up. Alright, so as far as our major planning goes, we have done quite a bit. So we actually did quite a bit of our major planning with the characters. We did classes, we did enemies, we just finished skills. Items were already pre-made, but we'll tweak them later on to bounce more how we're making the game later. We made equipment. I guess part of planning also is what tile sets you want to use for your game in this case. There are some basic ones here already set up. Let me see if there's anything else we can make. Like, these tile sets have... So you have like outside tile sets for like world map looking stuff. Outside building tile sets also exist. These are just the base stuff, by the way. Dungeon, inside building stuff, dungeon proper. Then we have a science fiction tile set. We also have science fiction inside. Is there anything else here that I can use that's not these? And if we wanted to, we can also mix and match. We can also mix and match different tiles from different resources to create a unique environment. Is the lore done yet? We don't really have a lore. The lore is as basic as a simple RPG with one town and one dungeon. Lore, I guess, would also be part of planning, which is also part of the story. Like what kind of story you want to give this. I guess we should give it a lore. What lore should we give this? This is but there's really no... We haven't actually made a lore yet for this mini game because this is just gonna be a really small game. It's like an example RPG, but I guess we should give it a lore. Simple RPG with one town, one dungeon. Lore is Shin Megami Tensei inspired. There's gonna be like super simple, super chuny, super jeez, I can't even think right now. It's super chuny, super I don't know. It's gonna be very simple. It's gonna be very cheesy. But I guess we should make it at least somewhat convincing. I guess we could try to make it somewhat convincing. But if you have any other lore that you want to throw out there, go for it. Just keep in mind, we do have a odd mix of characters. We have a security robot, a schoolgirl that seems a little bit mysterious, a cat, and another schoolgirl that looks like she's been time traveling too much and she's about to go crazy. Oh, and I kind of covered that. Let's go through that again. A robot here. Schoolgirl that looks a little bit mysterious. A cat. Somehow our cat is the healer. And this is our DPS class that looks like a certain magical girl who's about to go crazy. But yeah, I'm not sure what lore we can come up with these for, but somehow this is our party. This is our current party. And if I wanted to, I can do like a side action, like a side view thing for these characters, but I don't have side view for everyone, so probably not gonna mess with that. It's not required anyway. Let's see, they stole the town's dog mascot and they're mad about it. Wait, let me go back. What if the lore was the characters were actual sized? Robin, did you see that video also? Did you see the video also? Because someone showed me that a few days ago and that was hilarious. Oh my gosh, what? I wish I could put it up on YouTube, but I cannot. I cannot put that up on YouTube, but if you know where that came from, Robin, if you want to link that in chat, go ahead, please link that in chat. If it doesn't go through, I will force it through. Because I have seen this video. Oh my gosh. I have seen this video, but basically, basically the video is I don't know what the lore is. I don't think there's actually a lore. But basically the premise is there's these characters that are the size of your overworld map. Like, you know, let's just do that really quick so we have something to look at. And I'm gonna change my main character here. Or no, well, I can't change it just yet. So let's just do it. Let's just do something really quick. Yeah, anyway. I'm not sure what I did with my tiles here, but anyway. So let's just say this is your main character here, this robot guy. But instead of robot guy, it's going to be like the anime girl. Let me see if I can just change it for visual sake, because this is going to bug me. This is going to bug me. There we go. There we go. Now, let's imagine that this girl is your main character. Is the link not going through? Is the link not going through? I guess the link's not going through. But that's the title if you want to look it up. It's hilarious. It is quite hilarious. But in general, yeah, the main character of those videos are... I think there's only 2 videos so far. The main character of those videos are girls who are the size of the buildings, trees on the world map. And when they run into an enemy character, let's just put an enemy character here really quick. Quick event. I'm gonna have to just do a new. Let's just do an enemy character really quick. Let's just say this is the enemy character over here on the left. Whenever they run into an enemy character, the enemy character is a normal sized human, but the RPG character is like giant. This normal sized human barely even is taller than is not even as tall as the toes of their shoes. So they try to attack rather pathetically, and whenever they get punted, they take like more than max damage. It's hilarious. Also, I think there's 2 videos. Watch them both. I'm not gonna spoil the second video, but the first video is the one I mentioned where there is a fight that goes on. I'm not gonna spoil what happens in the second one, but it's hilarious. How would you show them back to normal though? That is a good question. That is a good question. I don't think I'm gonna go that route for this one, because we're gonna do a front view battle. Is there a way to do? I haven't checked NV yet specifically if how to do a side view battle by default, because I've been using VX Ace for the most part whenever I do my own thing, but I figure I should do MZ where I'm at it. But as much as I would like to use that lore, let's not use that lore, because it'd be kind of copying them. It'd be copying the people that came up with it for us. We're not, and as much as I would like to pay homage to that, not this time, sadly, not this time. Let's go with the other one. They stole the town's dog mascot, and the town is mad about it. Okay, let's go with that as the lore for this one. And it kind of makes sense because we have a cat over here, except we don't have a dog character with us. So let's make this the lore. System 1. Ah, okay. I see it. I do have an issue with the side view though. We don't have side views of the robot or the cat. So we're gonna put a placeholder for them for now. It's gonna look weird as placeholders, but let's put a placeholder now instead. If we're gonna use side view. But the thing is, I can't really make these guys bigger in the side view. If I did that, I would just have like replace these sprites with a shoe, basically, a giant shoe. So that's a little difficult to do it under the current system. But that would be neat though, that would be neat. Turn-based. Oh, okay, there is a turn-based active. Wait, what is this? Determines all battles actions at once, based on agility. Battles act based on agility. Time does not pass during input command. Okay. So I think this is like default CTB, this is ATB, and this is default RPG Maker over here, where it's like on a per turn basis. Probably not the system most people are used to, though it is used in gacha games, I think. Most gacha games. ATB, this is like the Final Fantasy system, where time flows all the time. And then CTB is probably the other time system people are kind of used to, where it's like on a, if you ever seen those games where it has like the turn order on the top or the side and time flows based on agility, it's kind of like that also. I wish I had a good example here that I can show. I know examples off the top of my head. Like Grandia would be one, the Atelier series would be another one. But I don't know if I can well, I guess I can show it. I just don't want to hunt for those pictures right now. Would be an issue. But anyway, we did most of our skill planning, actor planning, classes, items. We didn't really touch items. We'll fix this as we go though, because we don't know how things will scale for the game. Weapons, we don't have all the weapons here yet, but we have starter stuff, and I'll probably fill this in as we go. Or we can fill this in right now. So here's the plan for weapons. We have everyone with three weapons throughout the entire game. The tank will use a shield, the fighter will use gloves, the cat will use a scarf as their weapon, the DPS will use a book. These are their starter stuff. But if you have names that we can give for intermediate and final weapons for each one, start shooting names. I will write them down. I don't care how crappy it is, I will write it down. Just don't make it obscene. Just nothing obscene, please. But yeah, shields, gloves, scarves, and books. So we gotta think of mid-game and end-game names for these things. Let's see. I mean, this is like still part of the planning phase. We'll deal with the stats and stuff once we work on the one character we can work on for the stream, because otherwise we will be here all day. All day. So I guess something like, I guess I'll do one for an example. Mega Ultra Uber Star Blast, what is that for? What is this one for? Give me a weapon class for this one, because that tells me nothing. If I had a gun class, sure. But I don't have a gun class. This tells me nothing. Let's see. Some messages here I need to take care of real quick. That's good enough for now. Alright, well... Oh, spell? Well, our spells are kind of done. But we can use that for a spell. So I'll use that for our explosion spell. And I'll figure out the capitalization for that later. Hey Doobie, welcome to the stream. Right now we are trying to plan and design our RPG that we're going to be making into a series. And right now we're trying to figure out weapon names we can give for our characters. So our tank will be using a shield, fighter we're using gloves, our healer is going to be using scarves, and our DPS is going to be using a book. So if you have any names for weapons and armor, for weapons, let me know, and I'll write them down regardless of how silly it is, but just don't make it obscene, please. Armors, we're not really dealing with armors per se. We do have rings we're going to be using as accessories, and also armor stand-in. Speaking of which, is there a way by default to... Okay. I'm trying to figure out there's a way by default to remove armor types and stuff. We are going to be using the default assets for the most part, but I'm gonna try by next stream to use some free assets for enemies and hopefully actors also. But this is what we're using this as stand-ins for now. During the planning phase, it does not have to be perfect. We just have to know. Sussy stuff. Sussy stuff. How about Sussy book? Because they're using a book. Though I guess I can switch to a staff really quick. Fine, we'll use Sussy staff. This is for our healer. I need to actually make labels for these. Copy and paste. This is going to be... I need to make labels. Tank weapon. And I need to... Crap. Tank weapon. Fighter weapon. Healer weapon. Manga. Of course, we need a manga. Let's make the manga the starting weapon for this one. I think that would be appropriate. And because why not, we're gonna make it a BL manga. Starting weapon. So worn shield. Let's make these gardener gloves for the fighter. So BL manga for the starting weapon there. Let me see if I can get a special character here to use. Hopefully I can use it. Otherwise it'll be sad times. Oh, does that show? I hope it shows. Alright, so let's see. Let's do Thorn Shield for ultimate weapon for the shield. Sword of nothing. No one uses a sword though. No one uses a sword, so maybe we can use... Let's try invisible scarf. Oh, knit scarf would be not this one. Not the starter. Knit scarf would be second one. Let's do an invisible scarf. Tactical bikini. Ah! That would be armor. That would be armor, not a weapon. Not a weapon. We can probably do a tactical bikini here as a defense item. There we go. Tactical bikini as a armor. Running out of water. I'm running out of water. Let's see. So this is going to be a... So I guess we'll just call it fur for the starting weapon for the healer. Guess I'll fill some of this in as we go. A chair. Ooh, I like that one actually. Let's do Worn Shield as an intermediate weapon for the tank, and we'll give the tank a chair for a starting weapon. Technically, we're not using armor in the traditional sense. We're just to keep this game simple. We're going to be using just weapons and accessories. We're just going to be using weapons and accessories to keep this game simple. And I have to change assets here for a bunch of stuff, but at least we have names and ideas on how to go about this. This is all planning. We're just planning and designing right now. It takes so long to do this part, but we must get through this part before we can actually get anything done. And generally when you do planning and design, it's all on paper or like some sort of a document that you can pass around to your team members if you have team members to help you, so that everyone takes a different job and this thing gets done a lot faster. Which, now that I think about it, I was gonna try to do the stream every other weekend. That might still be on track, but it may also not be, depending on how things work out. Traffic cone. Who are we gonna give the traffic cone to? What are we using the traffic cone on? This will give her encyclopedia for a second one, and then we'll give the DPS the Necronomicon for their final weapon, because why not? Who are we giving the traffic cone to? The tank? Alright. Let's do traffic cone. Not sure how they're gonna use that as a weapon. Or a shield, but okay, we'll roll with it. I feel the chair would be sturdier, but you know, this doesn't have to make any sense. Does not have to make any sense. Okay, I might as well give these things icons while there. Okay, that does sound like a very nice final weapon for the tank, the banhammer. Manga, not for kids. We already have the BL manga. I don't think we can make it any worse than that. Yeah, we already have the BL manga as the starter weapon. We got slots for 3 weapons for each one. We're trying to keep this as small as possible. As small as possible. If we had more slots, then we would definitely do that. So Banhammer, ultimate weapon. It does sound like it's an ultimate weapon. Let's see. Gardener gloves. What else can we put? Oh wait, I need to get scarves here. So scarf, scarf, scarf. I guess that kind of looks like a scarf. Scarf, scarf, scarf. Let's see. Fur scarf. Fur? Speaking of fur scarves, have you guys ever seen those pictures of cats wearing like hats and clothes made out from their own fur? Have you guys ever seen those before? I'm not sure if it's just a Japan thing because I've seen it only in a Japanese craft book. But I don't think I've ever actually seen it. I don't think I've actually seen it anywhere else. Comically big scissors for the doctor. The doctor is a cat. I'm not sure how the cat's gonna hold scissors, but let's give them scissor claws somehow. Maybe scissor claws. Maybe something for claws, because I don't know how a cat's gonna hold scissors. Scissor claw. It's not morbid. It's not morbid. It's actually pretty cute. Because this is like shed fur. This is like shed fur. Hold on. Cat clothes fur. This is it's not morbid. It's like this is like their shed clothes. Not that's their shed fur. Cat hat shed fur. That's not morbid. That's not morbid. Let me see if I can put that on screen really quick. Just really quick. But yeah, it looks like this. It looks like this. I don't think that's morbid at all. I think it does look cute, if not a little hilarious. But no, it's just like that. It's just like that. I don't think there's anything bad about this per se. Now the cats look like they're like, what? What? But it's more like, you know, I clean up your fur every day. That's that kind of thing. So it's like it's like your fur back to you or something like that. I don't know. Let's see. So we'll give our fighter also boxing gloves for their second tier weapon. And maybe brass knuckles for their ultimate weapon. Gotta upgrade that thing. Your mind was going some other places? Yeah, I can imagine. I wouldn't know what that was though, but I can imagine it was. So I needed to get that picture out just for clarification. Alright, I think we could take forever trying to come up with names for all this stuff, but let's just stick with this for now. And I'll come up with other things for the armor also. I didn't realize how long this was actually going to take. So we could go into details on how to do curves of HP and all these other stats for your other characters. But that's like whole theory stuff that we're just not equipped to deal with as far as the stream is concerned. So we're not really going to worry too much about that. What we will try to do though is at least but set up the tank stuff as far as how the detail of this is gonna like look like as far as programming. Well, I say programming very, very lightly. Now, when I say programming in RPG Maker, I just mean like using the default settings of the game, this kind of stuff, and maybe clicking a few menu things. When I say scripting though, that's actually diving into the JavaScript in MZ. And that is a bit more involved, and we are not going to go there. It's too complicated for the stream. Too complicated for the stream. And I haven't dealt much with it myself, so I don't know how things are arranged in there. But if you know JavaScript, if you know how objects work, then you should be able to find a lot of this stuff. The main thing is I don't know how things are arranged here just yet, so I can't do any like scripting off the top of my head to do that. But let's just make sure all our classes though are set up properly. So our tank is a tank, our fighter is a fighter, our medic is a medic, and our DPS is a DPS. Here we can set EXP curves, stats, and all that stuff. Now for our characters, we are probably going to give everyone their skills at level 1. Now, generally, you can do this however you want. For a small game, I don't see a reason not to give skills at level 1. I'm just gonna copy and paste this really quick so I don't have to like do this. Well, I guess I still kind of have to do that. That did not save me any time at all, actually. But we're gonna go ahead and set up the skills for our characters. And there's quite a few stuff to go through here. Good lord, this part is a pain in the butt. I wish there was an easier way to do this, but there really isn't. I'll set up the rest over here later because it's just me clicking through menus and stuff. But anyway, as far as the designing portion of this, you gotta once you have your character set up, your classes set up, your character classes set up. You feel like a sense of progression would be lost if it was at level 1. I guess that's true. This is true. For a small game, I don't think it matters too much as far as progression, but I guess we'll give a little bit of progression. But for now, we'll just say these are their skills, and then I'll figure out later how to spread these. I will say though, as far as the game is concerned, we'll probably make like the max level 10 for this one. Or let's make it 20. Let's make the max level 20. This is a short game. This is going to be a very short game. So our skills are going to be spread out between those 20 levels. Now, we could probably have some skills be learnable also. We can also have some skills learnable also, so that way we can show how the very short it's just going to be one dungeon, and when you get to the end of the dungeon, it's done. I mean, as far as that's concerned. Hey Reichi, welcome to stream. Thank you. But yeah, probably like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe no longer than an hour. This is just a sample game, though. Keep this in mind. This is just a sample game as far as this is a sample game to go through the concepts of game design. Nothing too fancy. Nothing too fancy. If I went fancier than this, we would be here for like forever. Shin Megami Tensei inspired. Oh, actually, that was just stuff that we were throwing around. We were tossing around. It's probably not going to be Shin Megami inspired. It's gonna be very silly. They stole the town's dog mascot, and the town is mad about it. That's the direction we're gonna go. That's the direction we're gonna go. So I don't know if you heard, but part of the caveat of this game design stream is to have chat help out with the game's direction, and it was tossed out that someone asked what the lore of the game was, and the lore of the game is this. Pretty much. Oh, okay. It doesn't seem like Restream is doing its job. So I'm not sure if it's a little weird. I'm actually dual streaming this into Twitch also. So I thought I had Restream. The Restream bot bounced the chat back and forth. I guess that did not happen. I'm sorry if that's a little confusing. But no, I am streaming to both YouTube and Twitch, so I thought I had the Restream bot. What do you call this? Have chat display in both sides. So sorry for the confusion if that's the case. That did not come up until someone actually showed up on Twitch. So, but anyway, okay, so. Well, I'll fix this off stream because we're kind of dragging already as far as time is concerned with a lot of this stuff. So anyway, we have skills set up. I'll figure out when these skills are going to be learned. Twitch chat will now see it. It will now see it because Restream is well, it didn't see anything pat before this conversation. Now it will. Now it will. And if someone talks on Twitch, it'll show up now. For some reason, I didn't have it turned on earlier. There you go. Anyway, so the skill stuff I'll figure out off stream because there's so much configuration we can do here. What does the parameter curves do? Okay, so typically you don't have to worry about this too much in game design, though you can definitely. So let me just open up a separate notepad, just so we're kind of clear what we're talking about. Okay, and then I need to make a new file. Okay, so what are the curves about? So the curves tell you, so as far as RPG Maker is concerned, there you can like do quick settings on how fast or how slow HP, your curves for HP, attack, all this other stuff go up. There's like a fast growth. There's a slow growth, where it's very slow, but then they shoot up eventually. Or normal, which is like basically flat. You can change the values. You can also do individual values for each stat. So let's say for some reason at level 50, your HP dropped down to 100. You can do that if you want to, but why would it? You can set this as fine as you want it, but it's basically just saying as you increase in levels, how is this going to affect your stats? And you can do it for every single one. Now, this is the very manual way to do it. If you want something like the HP stat, if you want like something like the stat growth in MOBA, where it's like increases by 2.5 each turn. There are a couple ways to do that. You can script that into the character growths, or you can calculate ahead of time what your beginning stats are and what your end stats will be. So let's say our starting stats is is like 100 HP, and we want to increase this by, let's say, 5 per level. So 98 levels times 5, you end up with plus 490 HP. So you end up with 590 HP at level 99. So it looks low here, but with respect to how you build your game, this might actually be a pretty high value. And then you can say, how fast do you want to grow? Do you want to grow fast, where you peak a little bit and then slowly get there? It's slow, you build it slow, but it gets up there eventually. Or is it going to be static? So if you just do normal, it's going to be an even growth throughout those levels. So that's basically what the curves are. It just tells you how fast, how slow, that kind of thing. This is going to be part of your game design. Like, tanks are going to have a lot of HP, but maybe not as much MP. Or a lot of defense, but not as much attack, that kind of thing. You just kind of have to figure this out. The nitty-gritty details on how you want to deal with that. But the curves are there for like just how fast and how slow you want stats to grow. Honestly, in a perfect world, you wouldn't have to worry about this at all. Like, my personal style of doing stat growth is like, what is your starting value, what is your end value, and how fast do you want to get there. That is it. And you can do that pretty easily here from this endpoint by doing the endpoint settings and doing normal, and you're fine that way. You can also set EXP curves, but honestly, this gets too complicated even for me. Like, I'm not sure if you know a game called Ragnarok Online, but the EXP curves in Ragnarok Online are like exponential up to a certain point. So these values could get pretty crazy depending on how you want the curve to look like. See this, how steep this curve is? The more you fight, the more EXP you get. Honestly, the best way I feel to set EXP tables is not worry about it. You basically want to design your game progression. Yeah, it scares me too. You want to design your game progression as far as levels and stuff are concerned, based on how fast or how slow you want your characters to get as you progress through the story. Are you going to encourage grinding? Are you not going to encourage grinding? Are you going to encourage not grinding? There are ways to do this, and scripting would probably help a little bit here also, where you can have like a dynamic experience scale, where like if your character is at a certain level when they fight certain enemies, the EXP will scale up or down depending on how strong they are. Like, if you keep fighting slimes until the max level, then either it'll take a really long time, or you fight slimes and they're good for a while, but then the EXP drops off. That's part of the design. That's part of your design phase, and that's something you have to ask yourself how you want to do. Leave that to people who like to theory craft and do this kind of thing. I like theory crafting, But even this is a total headache, so it's like make it as lenient as you want or as difficult as you want depending on how you're designing the game. Also, it's best to just design the leveling system, the leveling curve, based on how strong you want the party to get at a certain point. Do you want it to be all stat-based? Do you want it to be mainly equipment-based, skill-based, that kind of thing? This is all part of your planning. This is all part of your design. We did not go into that because it is a huge, huge deal and takes so much time, and I feel like I don't have the expertise to go through all the pros and cons of one design over another, which I think would be a more fruitful stream, a fruitful thing to talk about during a stream. But I am not confident to talk about that. It is a very interesting topic though, and subject to a lot of debate depending on which camp of design you are in. I have a friend who likes to keep things as simple as possible, but yet at the same time make the actual battle mechanics more interesting by introducing a lot of status effects that either get added or removed depending on skills you use, so that it causes this chain reaction of things to happen and makes the battle somewhat more involved. And when I say more involved, I don't mean complicated. I mean like you're actually thinking through to how this works. Sometimes though, if you do it that way, battles can drag on for too long, like normal fights. Sometimes you just want to smash through like the normal enemies and progress. That's also a valid concern. That's also a valid thing. And then once you actually get to bosses, that's where you want to probably put the most effort into designing how to design your bosses to behave. That's my take on it anyway. Because for me, boss fights are great. They probably should be like the main focus on testing the player on if they know certain mechanics or not, or testing the player for like, did you think about this trick? How about this trick? That kind of thing. And you generally want to design bosses around your characters, or maybe design your characters around your bosses. It can go both ways. It can go both ways. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think my friend typically advises to make bosses around the characters. Like, what can the characters do, and what can the boss do to either counter those or what do you call this? Make the player think about how their characters work to take down a boss. Put mana for the party on 1 mana bar to increase thinking about the situation. Say what? I'm trying to parse that sentence. I'm not sure I'm parsing it correctly in my head right now. And I'm out of water, so I'll be right back really quick. Please explain that sentence because I'm not understanding it. I'll be back though. Let me put my BRB sign. BRB. Okay, that's interesting, because I don't think I've heard that before. Also, I'm back. Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that before. Is there a game that actually does that? Can't think of one that off the top of my head. I know the older Final Fantasies will use like a spell stock system to where, like, let's say Cure 1 can only be used 8 times or 9 times in a fight. It's kind of like the D&D system to where you can use only like where you can use spells only certain times each day, that kind of thing. I know there's that system. There's also the MP system that we're quite used to these days, where each spell costs a certain amount of points. But having a shared mana pool for everyone to use from, I don't think I've heard that before. Okay, so your friend just came up with it. I'm gonna have to write that idea down and run that and see and check with my friend what the pros and cons would that be. I know the con would be your skill usage would be very limited. But if you want to make the skill usage limited, you should also have the skills themselves be extra powerful to make up for that limited skill use. Otherwise, I don't see a reason to use it. Because to me, skill usage is actually the best way to do a battle system. Because you don't want to just have everyone keep using physical attacks, because all that does is just encourage you to mash attack and really not think about the fight. Which for simple fights, that's fine, but for more complicated fights, that becomes a liability. Now that I think about it, I do have an example for that. So in the Atelier series, Atelier Ryza, there is a system similar to that. MP in this case would be the core points used to use an item. This is Ryza 1, not Ryza 2. Ryza 2 did away with this system because it sucked. It utterly sucked. So Ryza 1 had a core point system to where each item each item would use a certain number of points, core points. Typically ranges from 1 to 5, sometimes 10. And once you use that item up, you have to sacrifice another item. You have to sacrifice an item to recharge those core points to full, in order to use your items again. So that to me is a very bad system for a series, for even a game or a series that is based around item crafting, item usage. You're basically killing the trademark of your game in order to use items, and I think in their head they thought it would be very strategic to do that. In practice though, it just made it more frustrating to use items. It did not encourage item use, and it basically encouraged mashing buttons for attacking, which is not how you want to do it. Ryza 2 did away with the sacrificing. Sacrificing the item would be the the 1 mana bar sharing in this case. But Ryza 2 did away with that mechanic and made everything so much better. Now they still had they still had a core point usage for items, but instead of deducting from a total and recharging it by sacrificing an item, instead you build the core points throughout the fight as you use skills. So it's a build-up process. The general process in Ryza 2 is you use normal attacks, you generate points to use skills, There's no MP, there's no like MP mechanic in this game, by the way. Instead, you would build AP action points as you use normal attacks. And once your action points are built up, you use skills. Skills cost action points. Now, as you use skills, that builds up core points. Core points are used for items. So it would go normal attacks, skills, items. The reason why they did that is because items are so powerful, they wanted to limit you from using it too often. Now, I like that system better because there is a progression on skill usage, as opposed to sacrificing the item you want to use in order to use other items. It's kind of like discard and draw. I don't like that. I don't like the discard and draw method, typically. So yeah. On paper, it might sound like a good idea, but I feel like it would make the experience more frustrating. Put a move limit to the fight. I don't know if I would put a move limit to the fight. I can kind of see that working for like a tactical RPG or a tactical RPG or SRPG. Strategic RPG, tactical RPG, I don't know, however you want to call it. I know they do that for Valkyria Chronicles or some Final Fantasy Tactics games, where you have to finish the fight in a certain amount of turns, otherwise it's a game over. Those I find okay, and they're fairly lenient. But a move limit on skills and attacks just to finish the fight, I feel like it would be frustrating unless it was fine-tuned enough. Like, it's interesting on paper, but I just feel like it's not easy to pull off properly. I am a believer that every mechanic has a place and every mechanic idea is usable in some form, but just because it's usable doesn't mean it's going to work out the way you think all the time. And that just feels like it's limiting. It just limits the player's ability to do things properly. Now, I guess that also kind of makes sense though in a case if you're used to, let's say, card games, right? So D&D, not D&D, Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering probably has that kind of system where every card you have pulls from gets mana from one set of gets points from a pool of mana. I can see that. If you're trying to mimic something like that, I think I can see mimicking that kind of system. But there's got to be a way to recharge it rather than having it empty and then you can't use it anymore. If everyone's sharing from the same MP pool and you can recharge it somehow mid-fight, that's fine. But if it stays empty, then I feel like it's very limiting. Well, it's fine to make the player think. That's never a bad idea. In fact, I would like more players to think as they progress through a fight in an RPG. What I'm trying to say is you don't want to limit the options of your players so much that it discourages them from using the skills they would normally use to get them out of the fight, if that makes any sense. Like, I am very much for skill-based fighting where you use all the skills you have disposal, all the spells, passives, equipments, items you have at your disposal to win a fight. I am not a fan of limiting those skills unless it is a mechanic of the fight itself, like say a boss silences you, puts that limit on you. That is part of the fight, so how do you get out of that situation? But if it's something that its like core mechanic to limit it, then that's, I don't know. I'm just not a fan. It's also partly why partly why I probably didn't like what do you call this? Games that have a no, I can't think of it. I can't think of it. But anyway, I mean, it's definitely like a debate topic for sure. For sure. Like I said, I'm not an expert at this stuff, but at least on paper and just thinking about the pros and cons of that kind of system, it's quite. There's so many ways you can go about it, but there's so many. It's not a bad. It won't be a bad system if there's a way to make it easier for the user to use their skills. I think that's at the end of the day what I'm trying to get to. But anyway, I'm gonna do the level stuff here at some point. Not this one though. Well, as far as skills and design, I think we did everything we could. I was gonna go through the menu stuff here and how to achieve this, but that's more like RPG Maker specific, so I probably won't go through it here. I'll probably fix this up, a lot of this stuff up off screen. As far as like the specifics on how this is going to work, I mean, generally we have a good idea what these skills are supposed to do based on the names we've given them. And these names that we've given them I can put in the description to make it clearer to the user how these are supposed to work, and then give them fancy names after that. That's generally how you want to make the skills. Know what they do first and then give them fancy names to make them more unique. Or chuny, whichever it is. But yeah, I think we covered quite a bit as far as planning goes. Design, we kind of mixed and matched here and there. As far as how to make skills, or went through the process anyway. Let's see. Let me bring out the notepad again. Close this one, don't need this. Close this one, don't need this. Let's see. Let me bring this up. So as far as planning for the lore story, since this is going to be a very simple game, what is manga supposed to do? Manga's a weapon. Manga's a starting weapon. That's all it is. It's probably gonna have like really pathetic attack but high magic attack because it's gonna be for our mage DPS. So, but yeah, that's a DPS weapon, so it's gonna increase their magic somehow until they get the Book of the Old Ones. But yeah, so we more or less did characters, classes, enemies, skills. I'm gonna polish this up off screen, otherwise this is gonna take 10 hours and I don't have time for that right now. And then once we do the next stream, we'll go through the mapping and eventing process as far as how to get that going. I also show you some examples, hopefully, how to do scenes and stuff in RPG Maker. I'm trying to think of something else. Ah, crap, I deleted all the previous notes I had. Oh, that was smart. Because the thing doesn't read too far down. What I probably should have done instead of this. Why didn't I think of this? This is what I should have done. This is what I should have done, not this, not this notepad looking thing, but I don't know, it's also a bit not the best. Not the best way to display things because it gets really, really small. Yeah, there's no easy way to do this. But anyway, I think we did quite a bit today. I'm gonna clean up as much of this as possible. When we do the next stream, I'll probably show an example on how to achieve certain effects for what you might want to do. It's probably gonna get RPG Maker specific at this point. But in general, planning and design, this is what you're gonna be spending most of your time on, regardless of what project you're going to do. Regardless. Yeah, we're gonna close stream here anyway. Also, thanks for dropping by, Daniel Richardson. And thank you everyone for joining me on the stream. Hope you learned something, despite how messy this might have possibly been. Thank you all, and I'll see you guys next time. I need to make a schedule for the next week. So yeah, I'll see you guys later, and have a nice rest of your day. Thank you, and goodbye. Alright, where's that button? There we go.